Alrighty, everyone. Good morning and welcome to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. I'm going to step on screen and introduce myself. Good morning. My name is Tina, but I'm not alone in the studio. I have with me my very good friend Courtney, and they are going to be controlling all of the wonderful magic that you see behind me today. For our Aquarium Online Academy today, we're going to be talking about something very, very special. We're going to be talking about our very own ocean backyard. So, what that means that we are going to be talking about animals that live right here in Southern California. Now, I do want to mention we are currently rolling live on March 7th at 9 a.m. And if you would like to interact with us during this program, please feel free. Down below, Courtney's going to put a phone number. Feel free to call or chat in with us. There's also an email as well that you can use. Just in case you are not watching on May 7th, you can watch at any point in time. Feel free to email us at this little email right here live at L. And able to answer your questions even though we're not live on the air. But if you are watching us right now at 9 a.m., feel free to call or text in at 562 286 1838. Feel free to call and text in any questions and observations that you might have. My good friend Courtney is going to be monitoring those phone lines just to make sure that we can get your questions and answer them live on the air. We're going to go ahead and keep this phone number and this email on up just throughout our program today in case you do feel like chatting on in with us, okay? We're going to go ahead and get started, my friends. What we're going to be doing is warming up our scientist brains. Something that scientists do in order to start all of their wonderful research is they, of course, have to ask some questions and make some observations about the world around them. So, behind me is a wonderful webcam of our Habitat Blue Cavern right here at Aquarium of the Pacific. You're going to notice a bunch of different things swimming throughout this habitat. What I would love for you to do is in your brains or even on the chat or in the emails, go ahead and tell me something that you notice. I'm going to go ahead and step off screen. I'm going to give you some time to do that right now. It could be anything from what kinds of animals you might see, if you're recognizing any species of animals, what colors you see too. Is this a brightly colored habitat? Do we see multiple colors? Or do we see a lot of the same color? Also notice about the animals and how they are moving around within their environment. How are they interacting with different parts of this habitat? Okay? We can also take guesses as well. Do we think this might be a cold habitat? Would these animals live in cold water? Or could this be a warmer habitat, a tropical habitat with a lot warmer waters? Let's take maybe a couple more seconds and see if anyone wants to, again, call or text on in to 562 286 1838, or go ahead and email us at live@lbaop.org. Any observations you might be making. You could also make some predictions as well. What do you think? What kind of foods might these animals eat? We're going to be talking a little bit about that today as well. The food chain on how these animals interact with each other as well as interact with their environment too. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and step back on screen. I'm going to share a couple of the observations that I made while I was off screen just before. I'm going to talk a little bit about color. So I'm not really seeing a lot of really, really bright, vibrant colors. There isn't a very large amount of colors within this habitat. What I'm noticing is, of course, a lot of blue because we're under the water, but I'm also seeing a lot of grays. I'm noticing that a lot of the fish that are swimming around are kind of like a very grayish color. Some, got a couple down here, might be even a little bit pink in color. This one we'll talk about in a little bit is actually really, really cool. This one is black, pink, and then black again. We have this lovely fish over here, our giant sea bass. It actually has polka dots on it. Another color I'm seeing is also, you guessed it, it's green. We have all of this gorgeous kelp within our habitat, okay? I want to talk a little bit about what kelp is really, really fast. Kelp is a wonderful, wonderful kind of algae. This is really, really important, not just for us as humans, believe it or not. About 70% of the kelp that we breathe, of the air we breathe, comes from kelp forests, which is pretty cool. So everyone take a big deep breath in and out, and then say, thank you, kelp forest. Because again, a lot of our wonderful clean air is going to be coming from our kelp forests. So besides that, our kelp forest is also home to a lot of different animals. There are different levels of the kelp forest. Now I'm going to see if my friend Courtney can pull up a different picture of the kelp forest so we can look at how differently the kelp moves around and interacts with different levels of our animal. Perfect. So we're noticing that our kelp over here is swaying back and forth, right? It's swaying back and forth because it's being pushed around by the oceans, being pushed around by that current. But I want us to look all the way up. Do we see the sun shining through our kelp over here? Absolutely. Now, if we were to be swimming in this kelp forest right now, we look up, it's going to be like a ceiling of kelp. Because what happens with kelp is that it actually grows about 2 feet per day, which is a lot. I wish I could grow 2 feet per day. That would be wonderful. But when kelp grows, it's going to grow and grow and grow and grow, but it reaches the surface of the ocean. But it's still not done growing. There's no more space for it to grow upwards, vertically, so what it's going to do, it's going to start growing to the side. You're going to see a lot of our kelp over here is going up and up and up and up, and then boop, it is cutting across the surface of our ocean. This is providing a wonderful canopy layer, protection for all of our animals that live within our kelp forest. Our canopy layer is also a wonderful babysitter. You heard that right. It is a babysitter. There is a very special marine mammal that calls our kelp forests home. They are the fuzziest, fluffiest, one of the most adorable, in my humble opinion, mammals in our kelp forest. I'm going to see if my friend Courtney can pull up a picture of which animal. Oh, there it is. This is exactly what I was talking about. If you know what this is, go ahead and shout it out. This is our lovely, lovely sea otter. Our sea otters call our kelp forest home, and they use our kelp forest for a lot of different things. I mentioned that it's a wonderful babysitter, right? What mom sea otters do, this is really cute. They have their babies when they are just born. They are ultra, super, ultra, mega fuzzy. The fuzziest little things that you probably have ever seen in your life. Because of this, their fur is very, very dense. There are so many air pockets within their layers of fur that these babies, they cannot dive down into the water. They float. So basically, they're so fuzzy that they float. They're like furry little apples that bob within the water. Now, because of this, mom still has to go get food. And a lot of the food that our sea otters eat are going to be things that live almost near the sand, all the way down on the bottom layer of our kelp forest. So what's going to happen to baby if baby can't dive down there with mom? What mom does is she takes baby and she actually wraps it, swaddles it around in the canopy layer that we just saw in that top layer of the kelp forest and leaves baby there. And then mom goes, finds food, and then comes back to baby. So yes, kelp is a wonderful, wonderful babysitter, which I absolutely love. Let's talk a little bit about what our sea otters are going to want to eat. Sea otters in general, they have really, really wonderful teeth that help them crunch down on a lot of harder kinds of materials. They also have these adorable paws. These adorable paws are able to use tools. What sea otters will do is find somewhere in the kelp forest a wonderful rock. Did you ever like collecting rocks as kids? I would come home with pockets and pockets full of rocks because I love them so much. Sea otters, they find one very specific rock that they're looking for that they will use forever. This rock is their spoon, their fork, their knife. This is what helps them eat. They like to eat things like crabs, things like clams, anything with that harder shell that they can crack into using that rock. Another thing that sea otters really love to eat is something that we as humans could also eat, but we'd have to crack it open first. Let's see if my friend Courtney knows exactly what I'm talking about. It looks like a very forbidden apple. Yeah, you wouldn't want to bite into this thing, right? I absolutely would not. But our sea otters, they love our sea urchins. They will take their favorite rock, they will crack open that urchin test, which is kind of like the shell of our sea urchin almost, and then eat all of the wonderful meat on the inside. I'm actually going to switch over to my document camera really quick, and I'm going to show you what an urchin test looks like. There we go. So this is looking down. This is the top right now. I'll kind of flip it to the side so you can see. So all those little lines over there, those are where those spines would be kind of poking out from. Now inside is where all of that lovely little meat that our sea otter is going to want to eat, where that lives. you can see, I don't know if you can really hear it very well, but this is a very, very tough shell. I wouldn't want to bite into this because I would probably hurt my teeth. But this is why our sea otters use all of those rocks to help them crack through this really, really tough shell and to get through all of those spines. Now let's switch back over to that same picture of that sea urchin that we just saw. That same picture of the sea urchin that we just saw with eating a lovely piece of kelp. Excellent. So we're noticing that our sea urchin is sitting on top of a piece of kelp. Let's talk about what sea urchins do to our kelp forest, their role in our kelp forests. These guys, these animals, they are herbivores. So what that means is that they are only going to want to eat plant. And what better abundance of plant in the kelp forest than kelp itself, right? Sea urchins love to eat a very specific part of the kelp forest. This right over here, we call this the blade of the kelp. I know it looks like a leaf. So if we were to see a plant with all of these little oval shapes on it, we would say, oh yeah, that's a leaf. But we call this the blade. We can see all of the almost looks like sharp edges around our blade of kelp. This little bubble right over here, I'm sure a couple of you maybe when you walk on the beach, you see kelp washed up on the beach. You go ahead and step on these things or go like this, squeeze it, and what happens? It's going to pop because this right over here is something called a pneumatocyst. The pneumatocyst is actually a bubble of air. That's what helps our kelp float in those ocean waves that we saw earlier, right? So what we're going to do is look at another video that kind of demonstrates what would happen if there were an abundance of sea urchins in our kelp forest and not enough sea otters to eat those sea urchins. Let's see if we can find something that might happen. If sea urchins, their favorite food is kelp, and they eat and eat and eat and eat, and there's nothing to stop them from eating that kelp, what do you think? Let's go ahead and make some predictions while my friend Courtney finds a video for us. Let's make some predictions as to what we might think could happen if no one were to stop our sea urchins from eating kelp. Now, one thing I did forget to mention that sea otters aren't the only animals that eat our sea urchins. They're that fish that we saw before, our California sheephead. Our California sheephead, the black, pink, and black fish that we saw swimming in our blue cavern habitat, they also have a really, really powerful jaw that is able to crunch down on sea urchins as well. So what were to happen if none of those animals lived in the kelp forest? What would be the state? What would be the state of our kelp forest? It would be this video right over here. This is a video of what we call an urchin barren. As you can see, it's quite barren, right? Besides the fact that there are an abundance of sea urchins absolutely everywhere. We have our purple urchins. I'm seeing a couple of the darker ones, our red urchins, everywhere as well. This is what happens when we don't have enough sea otters and our California sheephead to eat all of our urchins. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'll go ahead and step off screen so you can take a little bit of a closer look. As I mentioned earlier, our kelp forests are important to us as well as important to our animals. Again, 70% of the air we breathe comes from our kelp forests. And kelp forests are also a wonderful, again, babysitter to our sea otters, home to wonderful other kinds of food and fish that are very, very important in our kelp forest ecosystem. Alrighty, my friends. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Excellent. What I would like for us to do together is actually draw a little ecosystem of a kelp forest. So if you would like, if you have any kind of paper, pencil, if you happen to have markers or crayons with you as well, that would be really awesome. If you don't have anything, not to worry. I'm going to be drawing it on my side, and you're more than welcome to take a picture of it and kind of copy it maybe later on your own time. Or pause the video, grab some utensils, and then come right on back, and then we can actually do it together again. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch back over to my document camera. And what I want to show you is a little bit of a closer look on how we're going to draw our kelp. Okay? Or actually, I'm going to start with drawing my environment first. Yeah, I'll do that. And then I'll get into how we're going to be drawing our kelp. First things first, we're underwater, right? So can everyone see my hand? Excellent. we're underwater, so of course we gotta draw our water line. So I'm gonna use blue. Again, if you don't have any blue, if you don't have any colors, that's quite alright. You're more than welcome to use pens or pencils and then color in later if you would like. We are underwater, so again, let's go ahead and make that water line. Another really important factor of our kelp forest is actually going to be the sun. So just like we did when we were in kindergarten, when we were younger, we're going to go ahead and draw our sun. I'm going to draw mine in the corner, just like this. I don't know if we can really see it very well. My marker's yellow. But we get the point. There we go. And if I do this? There, that might be a little bit better. Excellent. Our water, our sun, and two more things are going to be something that we call abiotic factors. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and write that in the sky. In the sky of my kelp forest over here, I'm going to write abiotic. Oh, can we see that? There we go. Can we see it now? Excellent. So abiotic, that's going to mean non-living things that are within our kelp forest or that make up our kelp forest, okay? We have two more things that are abiotic factors. Let's switch back to our blue cavern habitat really quick. Let's see what we notice. Let's see what kinds of non-living elements make up our blue cavern habitat or our kelp forest habitats. Let's think about what we saw. Alrighty, excellent. I'm seeing a lot of these over here. Does everyone see these? These huge boulders, right? These giant rocks. Now, yes, these are beautiful rocks, but they actually serve a very, very important purpose. One thing that we didn't talk about with kelp is that kelp doesn't really grow like plants do. Plants dig their roots deep into the dirt, deep into the ground, and they get their nutrients from there. But if kelp were to dig its roots to the sand and the waves blow them around, what might happen? The kelp is going to blow away. Absolutely. So what kelp needs to do is find a really, really sturdy surface to be able to hold on to so that they don't blow away in the current. What they're going to do is actually grow their roots on top of rocks, just like this. So let's go back to my document camera and then we can go ahead and draw those rocks together. Alrighty. Let me make sure that you guys can see. I'm going to start right there. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is just draw some squiggles. Or maybe I can zoom out a little bit. Can I zoom out? Ah, that's much better. There we go. Can we all see everything now? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw some squiggles on my paper like this. Maybe I'll do a tiny one over here next to a much larger one right there. Now, one way to make your rocks look a little bit more realistic, one of my coworkers taught me this. If you make little lines on your rocks as if they're kind of crackling a little bit. Give them some texture. Make them look as non-living, but living as possible. You don't have to copy the exact lines that I'm making over here. That's quite all right. Oh, can I zoom out even more? Oh, this is fabulous. Excellent. Okay. Can we all see abiotic still? Great. Alrighty, we have our rocks, but our rocks have to be sitting on top of something, right? They can't just be floating rocks. So what we're going to do is add our last abiotic factor, our sand. This is the fun part. You get to make some dots. Boop, 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 boop. I didn't give myself much room for sand, but that's quite all right. There we go. We have our sand. So our sand, our rocks, our water, and our sun, these are all really, really important elements within our kelp forest, but they are abiotic, which means they are non-living. Okay? That means it's time to draw our living elements. So what I'm going to write over here is biotic. Living. Alrighty. We mentioned a couple of them while we were talking about our kelp forest. First and foremost being our kelp, right? What's our kelp forest without any kelp? what I'm going to start with drawing is the roots of our kelp. And I'm going to move my picture really quick, and I'm going to show you what the roots of kelp look like. Boom. Kind of looks like my hair on a Sunday morning, right? It's a little squiggly, little knots everywhere. This is what we call a holdfast. The holdfast, in and of itself, is a marvelous ecosystem. There are actually small, teeny tiny organisms that live within our holdfast. They are called brittle stars. Our brittle stars are super teeny tiny, very thin and squiggly. They are a certain species of sea star that love to live in camouflage within this holdfast. Now, one thing I also forgot to mention about our sea urchins is that they don't just love eating kelp, they love eating the holdfast of kelp. So that means as soon as they nibble off all of those wonderful little roots of the kelp is going to float away. That's why you might see a lot of kelp kind of washed up on the beach. It's because the sea urchin has eaten a lot of that holdfast. Okay? This is the part that's also going to cling onto those rocks as wonderful, strong roots. So we're going to draw that on our rocks right now. So let's switch back. Right over here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use a brown because our holdfast is a little bit brown. And I'm going to pick a couple of different places for my kelp to grow. I'm going to draw one maybe over here. And how I'm going to draw it is making little parentheses and then some more lines. Little parentheses going backwards. You can make little squiggles if you want. You can really do this however you'd like. Again, you don't have to do the same thing that I'm doing. I'm going to draw one more over here. More lines. I'll make this one a little bit more squiggly. And let's do another one. Let's do right here. So in a real kelp forest, of course, there's going to be more than just 3 stalks of kelp. There's going to be a lot more kelp, right? But for the interest of time, for the interest of what we're drawing, let's only do 3 for right now. All right. Then let's go ahead and draw the body of our kelp. Now remember what I said earlier, kelp grows 2 feet per day. That's a lot of growing, right? So what happens when we grow, up, we hit the surface? Do we remember what happens? Yeah, we start growing off to the side. So I'm going to make this one just a little squiggly going up. That one maybe still has some growing to do. And then we'll do up and up and up. And this one's going to be a little bit longer and go across the page that way. Excellent. While we have that, I'm going to move my picture once again and show you a model of kelp. So we already kind of saw in that picture, we have the blade that kind of has these little serrated edges to it. We have our pneumaticist, our air bubble, and we also have this part connecting our whole blade, our pneumaticist, to our big stalk of our kelp forest. So what we're going to do first is draw little dashes on our kelp. Then we're going to move on to the pneumaticist, and then we're going to move on to this teardrop shape, of our kelp blades. Okay, let me bring back my picture. Perfect. Now you can do as many or as little amount of blades as you would like. I'm just going to go ahead randomly all over my paper, make those dashes, and that's going to be the start of where my kelp blades are. Do a couple more, and let's do one up there. Why not? Excellent. And now it is time for those pneumatists. Again, we said that these are like the floating life rafts of our kelp. This is what helps them float all the way up to the surface. Part of what makes them a wonderful babysitter for our sea otters. Right? They float to the surface, just like those baby sea otters do themselves, right? We learned that baby sea otters, up until they're about 3 months old, they can't really swim very well because their fur is super dense. They gotta float, just like kelp. All right, we have made little dots on all of those dashes. We've made all of our little pneumatists. Let's go ahead and make that teardrop shape blade. I'm basically just gonna do a swoop, and then another swoop, just like that. If you just want to do an oval, that's fine with me as well. Whatever you think is best, a best or better fit, I should say, in your own version of your kelp forest. I'm going to do a little bit of a mix of both, just for the interest of time. Excellent. If you even want to make your kelp forest different colors as mine, you can do that too. Perfect. And last blade. There we go. Now, what did we say? Who loves to eat the kelp, or specifically the holdfast of the kelp over here. Yes, it's right, our sea urchins. Let me see if I can find my purple marker. Can't seem to find my purple one. That's okay. I'll make it a different color. Let's make it... let's do blue. That's the closest thing I have to purple right now. Okay. For our sea urchins, we're going to do them... You can do one of two ways, or both ways if you really want. I like to make little asterisks and like that. Make it a little spiky urchin. Or you can do a circle. Make a little sunburst. Again, we're going to be drawing them by the kelp holdfast because that's where they love to eat. But don't draw too many, because what's going to happen to our kelp if there are too many sea urchins in our forest? That's right, it's all going to float away. We have to have some animals in here that eat our urchins, right? So we can go ahead and draw some of our fish. Remember we talked about our sheephead that loves to eat. I'm going to just draw a basic fish. Boom, that's my fish. And draw very, very basic ones swimming around in a little school. Pretend that this is supposed to be the California sheephead. Maybe I'll make one go this way. Why not? Okay. And then there is another biotic factor, a mammal, that we can draw together as well that also loves to eat our urchins, our otter. Here's how we're going to draw our otter, my friend. We are going to do a circle. Boom. After our circle, we are going to draw an oval. I'm going to make my otter kind of laying down on the surface. After you have your oval, you can make your little feet. I'm going to go out this way, and come back in. Because they have little webbed toes and make little lines. We can go ahead and draw their hands now. We're going to make even more circles. I'm going to make it look like it's holding something. So I'm going to do one there and one there. And if you want to draw a little urchin in its hand, you can do that too, or maybe a clam or a crab. Do a little urchin. There we go. Now for that face. Our sea otters have an adorable face, so we can go ahead and make two circles for their eyes. Triangle for the nose. And then smiley face going on both sides of that triangle. Now they don't have external ears like us humans, so you do not have to draw external ears, although I do think they look kind of a little bit cuter with some external ears. They look like little fuzzy bears. So if you want to, just for fun, you can. But again, they do not have those external ears. Alrighty, my friends, we have we have made a kelp forest with each other, and I think it looks pretty good. We have our own little ecosystem here. We have our otters who rely on the kelp to keep nice, good care of our babies, of their babies, I should say. They also provide, or the kelp forest provides them with food, like our sea urchins, like other kinds of crabs and clams, and a bunch of other different kinds of foods. Our fish themselves also eat our urchins, and our urchins have their kelp to munch on as well. A wonderful working ecosystem. One more thing I forgot to mention is how our kelp gets its food, how our kelp grows. They grow very similar to plants in that they use the sun to be able to grow. That photosynthesis, as some of us might already know. Alrighty, friends, let's see how much time we have left together. Oh, that pretty much about wraps us up. So let's go ahead and switch back to maybe another kind of video on my background over here. I just wanted to take the chance to thank you all so much for joining us. Free to join us next time on our Aquarium Online Academy. Our sea lions are saying goodbye, another marine mammal that lives within our kelp forest. We actually have another Aquarium Online Academy coming up at 10 o'clock, so feel free to come on back and join us for our virtual whale watch. Again, my name is Tina. I've been here with my friend Courtney. On behalf of all of our staff, volunteers here at Aquarium of the Pacific, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Have a wonderful day.